Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
Things that are natural are totally not normal today. Light synchronizes our biology and also puts us in a state of exquisite common sense, so the response is in each moment rather than ahead of time or after the fact. Cannot be reminded enough of what is essential. Rather than believing what I'm saying, I think people should experiment and see what works best for each person. A real simple solution, and you know what? The price was right. Notice what situations you are called to and what situations you naturally move away from. So much of not only our eating, but all of our doing is a very subtle form of addiction. This is Jacob Lieberman, and you're listening to Airey Bros Radio, the best sound on the air.
Just to kind of give you a little reference of how we were turned on to your information, we've been doing this podcast since 2019. And in the summer of 2019, we had a gentleman named Ronnie Teasdale on, and he was talking to us about sun gazing and earthing and all that. And we were very novice at the time. We weren't into really any of that, but he had mentioned your book, Light Medicine of the Future. And that was like the first little nugget. And then from there, I started sun gazing a little bit. And then last year, I kind of really got into it. And then I was losing a lot of weight. I was kind of tapping into more of a spiritual side of myself. And I was like, all right, I need to read something. I need to get more information. So I started diving more into your work. So first and foremost, thanks for doing the work. I know you put that book out in the 90s. It must be frustrating to you that, you know, we still kind of are where we are as a society, knowing that information. You had that in the 90s.
You know, the reality, Jimmy, is that each person has a job in this world. Your job, or at least one of your jobs, is sharing with your audience things that you find interesting. Part of my life's work is having things to talk about. If everyone got it, I wouldn't have anything to talk about. So even though that first book came out in 1991, which was, more than 20 years since I had been working in this area, 25 years, there's always new things coming up. And most importantly, as we grow as human beings, we learn new things on so many different levels, mostly through direct life experience. And so hopefully I can share some things that I know by heart that might be helpful to those listening today.
And so, Jacob, how did you get on this path of this sort of research and this sort of information? Like Jimmy said, we kind of had some anecdotal things. You know, we grew up at the beach and I lifeguarded for many years. And so looking back as a college athlete, you know, I feel like I came into the cross country seasons at my peak fitness before the season even started. And now looking back, I'm curious, was it because I was on the sand, you know, for 5-6 days a week, most of the day, and I was in the sun early morning and late at night? You know, how did you get onto this journey, and where did yours begin?
You know, you used to be a cross-country runner.
Yes, sir.
And I used to be a top-level sprinter.
Okay.
So athletes naturally are outdoors. And when I was a kid, we didn't have people lifting weights and going to the gym and working out and training. Literally, each season as the sport changed, we changed with it and we did our thing. And our training was that we did it every day. It wasn't something we did occasionally, we just did it every day. So my sense is that your love for running, and wherever you were running, you were doing it by day rather than by night. So you were getting the benefits of being outdoors because, you know, most people, when they work out at a gym. But the average person doesn't know that if you did the exact same workout outdoors as indoors, you burn twice as many calories. At the same time, you lower your blood pressure, you lower your respiration rate, you lower your glucose level, you lower your stress hormones, your heart rate slows down. Everything positive occurs just because you're in Mother Nature. And so you say, well, how does that happen? And what does it have to do with light? Well, we know that throughout the day, our physiology is inseparably linked with what's happening in the sky in terms of light for a 24-hour period. We call it our circadian rhythm. Now, most of us, when we think about that, we say, well, that has to do with awakening in the morning and going to sleep at night. No, that's just the extreme of it. Your physiology is receiving guidance from the invisible rays of energy called light, which no one has ever seen. We experience brightness, but we cannot see light. Light is a formless energy that is foundational to everything that exists. So your body is continually receiving signals of light that are telling all 100 trillion cells of your body what to do, when to do it, and to what degree. And so our state of wellness, which is inseparable from being harmonized with Mother Nature, that occurs naturally just by living in nature, by being outdoors. And so our optimal health is when we are one with the universe, if you will. And let me take it a little step further. So I don't know exactly where you two guys live in Denver, right?
I'm in Denver. Rich is in South Carolina.
Okay, so you know that if you're flying to Europe and it's now 7 or 8 hours difference, you get there and your body and your mind are confused. Your body doesn't know whether it's day or night. So you're starting to eat at odd times, sleep at odd times, have bowel movements at odd times until your body adjusts. Now, everybody knows what jet lag is, except most of us are jet lagged, but we didn't take a trip. And the reason is that we're all light deficient. Keep in mind, prior to the year 1900, 95% of the population worked outdoors. Now, 95% of the population work indoors. When you're outdoors, your whole system is getting harmonized continually with the natural cycles of light, darkness, the seasonal changes, and so on. And when that occurs, the acuteness of your vision, both your eyesight and your insight, is optimized, and your sense of knowing is optimized. Let me explain what that sense of knowing is. Everyone's heard the expression common sense. Common sense is a sense that is common to all living things. All living things share this sense. It's not like one of the major five senses. It is an incredibly sensitive aspect of our being, which we sometimes call intuition, but it is not a feeling. It is a sense of knowing. It's like the internal GPS that naturally draws us to something that we feel safe with and causes us to naturally recoil from something we don't feel safe with. And so animals, for instance, have this super high developed because other than domesticated animals, they live outdoors. Human beings have been conditioned to believe that what they think is more accurate than what they know. This common sense I speak of is incredibly accurate because your life depends on it. The mind, which we were led to believe is the way we figure out things in life, if you look at studies that have been done on that, you see that the mind is incredibly inaccurate. It is rarely, if ever, on the money. Most of the things you think about never occur. So this thing that you're asking about, how did I get involved in this? Well, I probably got involved in this as a child, spending a lot of time outdoors. But then once I went through my medical training, I got introduced to people that were doing a lot of work in this area. One of my first mentors was a guy named John Ott, who was a cinematographer, initially a banker, and time-lapse photography was one of his discoveries, which he did for Walt Disney and so on. But what Ott did is he noticed that plants just didn't flourish under normal indoor fluorescent lighting. He also found that when he put animals under different types of artificial lights, many of them developed cancer. Most of them did not function in any sort of an optimal level, but when they were in natural light or something that simulated natural light, their lifespan extended significantly. So that was one of my first mentors and close friends, and I've had a few along the way. And so I got very intrigued with this very early in the 1970s and have been at it for probably almost 50 years now.
Listening to you there's a lot of nuggets that I was trying to pick up on. Oh, I gotta ask him about that. I gotta ask him about that. I guess the place to start, you were talking about circadian rhythm and getting in sync with the earth or with the sun and the cycle of it. And I guess the question I have off of that is how is it that, if you have your circadian rhythm right, or you're doing your sun gazing, that you can be losing weight, eating less, and getting by on a lot less? Like, how does light affect your nutrition or your digestion? How does that kind of play in all this? And is it one of those things, if you have your light diet right, you don't really have to exert so much when it comes to exercise or nutrition?
A couple of things. First of all, sun gazing is a little different than just being outdoors. Sun gazing is a very ancient kind of practice, but even in ancient times, people knew that the only time that this felt really easy was when the sun was going down, or very early when the sun is rising. Now, we live in a culture that's built on ideas and beliefs, and we believe that our beliefs are accurate. But if you put the word belief into a thesaurus, you discover that belief means the same as idea, thought, hypothesis, concept, theory, and so on. But the opposite of belief is the word truth. So the reason I mentioned that is people are, told about sun gazing, and if a little works, let's go over the top and do it. And it doesn't work that way. Being outdoors in the light is not necessarily about, well, I haven't been outdoors, so I'm going to spend my day looking at the sun. That may not be a great idea because it's not in moderation. Your eyes get plenty of sun just being outdoors. Although, like I said, very early in the morning and at dusk, those are perfect times to look directly into the sun because it's at an angle that it's not going to destroy something in your eyes. So one, moderation is the key, first of all. Second of all, you said, gee, I lost weight and so on and so forth. Well, I don't know what was happening. Maybe you were eating less when you were sun gazing because light is a nutrient. Keep in mind, you've got 100 trillion cells and they require energy. Just like your automobile requires energy in the form of gasoline or diesel fuel or from a battery. That's what allows your car to run. Your cells have an energy that they also require. In the body, it's called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. The engine of your cells essentially creates this. The engine is called the mitochondria. It literally creates this energy, and then your cells use this energy to basically fuel all of their functions, including repair of the cell, renewing the DNA, and so on. The original thought was, well, I get that from food. Food provides my cells the energy that they need. And so then we have all kinds of different diets. One says I do it paleo, the other one is vegetarian, another one is vegan, another one is saying, gee, I don't eat at all. All of them have different benefits in terms of how they relate to the energy production. But the key that I want to share with you is only 1/3 of the energy that your cells receive is from the consumption of food. 2/3 is directly from the consumption of light. And most of that light, a great degree of that, enters via the eyes, about 98%. And we also get a big effect through the skin through a process called photobiomodulation, light modulating one's biology. So if you're getting enough sun, you may find that you have less of an appetite for eating. Now, I'm not recommending that people should stop eating and sun gaze. That's an individual thing. I can tell you, however, that I experimented with myself, not with sun gazing, but with not eating for a length of time in the very early 90s and had some rather profound insights about how the body works and that it works differently than I was trained and that things are possible, which prior to that time I thought were totally impossible. So one, you can get a lot of energy directly from the sun. You don't have to look directly into the sun to get that. If you want to experiment with sun gazing, I would suggest in the very early morning when the sun is low in the sky or at dusk. That to me are very easy times they're safe, and so on. I've had many people over the years that contacted me that started sun gazing and kept increasing their time and doing it by day. And many of them develop retinal problems. And so I'm sharing this with you because practices that may or may not have been done 2,000 years ago, our system has evolved away from that. So even though we say it is natural, or it was natural for humans 2,000 years ago, it's not natural today. And you have to be very, very aware as you do these things, because you could injure a system that is no longer set up to do that in the way that it once was, let's say 1,500 years ago or so.
Can you talk a little bit more about the time in the 90s when you tried to, would you say you were fasting? And if so, how
I
long
wasn't
did you
fasting.
go? No.
I
Okay.
wasn't fasting. I didn't eat for 9 weeks. I didn't consume any food for 9 weeks. The way this came about, I wrote about this in Luminous Life, but I did not include anything of my own history with this. I wanted to open up the chapter Living on Light with my own direct experience. So, because I wanted the reader to know that this wasn't theoretical. I actually did this, experienced this, and this is why I wanted to share it. My publisher said, "Oh my God, if you do that, people will think you're crazy." Well, anyone that's on the edge is probably crazy before they become mainstream. That was of no concern to me. What was important to me was honesty, was just to relate something that I thought was fascinating. And the reason I wanted to relay it now is that we're actually getting research now that is substantiating how that might occur. So what happened for me is I was, each year I used to go to Europe and to Australia and be there for 2.5, 3 months, speaking all over the place. And I was in Australia. I landed in Adelaide, Australia. The person that had invited me in to do an event picked me up at the airport, asked me if I was hungry or needed to eat. I said, sure, I'd love to have lunch. So we went to eat, and I ordered a salad or something, I don't remember. And he ordered a glass of water. And I said, you're not eating? He said, no, I don't eat. I said, you're fasting? And he says, no, I'm not fasting. I don't eat. Well, that brought up a very interesting conversation. And then when he took me home, he shared a house with 2 or 3 other people. None of them ate. The refrigerator was empty other than a couple of drinks. I never saw these people eat. I was there for about 4 days. I had taught a weekend workshop. 18 people came to that workshop that were part of this group that didn't eat. I thought it was fascinating. I didn't know exactly what to think about. And then after I left them, I went to Perth, Australia, and I was living in a house there while I was also doing events. And a couple friends of mine came to stay in the house. And I shared this experience with one of them. And he said, I knew this was possible. Please give me some information. So I called the people in Adelaide. I said, can you tell me more about this process? So they sent me a bunch of written stuff that it's a 3-week process, that the first 7 days, you don't have food or water, which I thought, I was trained that, wow, you did that for 4 or 5 days, you'd be dead. So they had this whole process, and I got intrigued. And so a week later, I said, I'm going to try this. So for the first week, I didn't eat or drink. That was a little scary, but I got through that. And then the next 2 weeks, I just had small amounts of water each day. And that's the way it was for 9 weeks. At the end of a month or 5 weeks, I lost 20 pounds. And my body went right to the weight that I used to have when I played football in high school. And what was fascinating at that point, Richard, is that at that point, my body stopped losing weight. It just stayed at the optimal weight I had as a high schooler. I then left Australia and went back to Aspen, Colorado, where I was living. The difference in temperature was 100 degrees. It was about 110 degrees in Perth, Australia when I left, and it was a little below zero in Aspen when I arrived. It was a very cold winter, and I lost 6 pounds in the next 2 days, and I really looked shriveled up. And, you know, people were looking at me like I had AIDS or something. It was really bizarre. And I was going into, I was supposed to have knee surgery on both my knees in Vail, Colorado. I went into that not having eaten. I told the anesthesiologist, I have not eaten. I probably need only a small amount of anesthesia. I had surgery on both knees. I walked out of the hospital a day later without crutches, used very little medication at all, which was really profound, both for me as well as the orthopedist. And then I was going out on a book tour for my second book, Take Off Your Glasses and See. And I got tired of people asking me about my experience because it was literally taking my whole life to share this. So I decided, you know what? I don't want to go through this anymore. I just started gradually having some broth. It took me 3 weeks before my body started to have normal bowel movements and for me to come back to everyday life, if you will. So that's the story of my experience. People say, oh my God, did you get enlightened from that? Hell no. Awakening is not related to that. It's not related to any techniques. It's something of a totally different nature. The experience was very interesting. I got to discover things about myself, such as most of our doing and eating is habitual and very addictive. We do it to fill in areas when it's a little uncomfortable for us. The first 3 weeks of this process was basically me being in my room. Can't watch television, can't listen to the radio or music, can't read. You don't do anything. You're just literally there with your noisy mind chattering away all day long. So I had a profound experience around this. Would I recommend it for most people? Probably not. It's not something that the average person is going to be able to do in their everyday life and function, because this world is functioning at a totally different level. And so things that are natural are totally not normal today. And so anyway, that's in response to your question. That was my experience from that.
What kind of discipline does it take to not drink water for 7 days?
Geez, I have no idea. It just was, I saw it. It was hard for me to believe when I experienced it that it was actually going on, but I saw it going on for a whole weekend of working with about 50 people at a workshop, and 18 of them didn't eat. I guess I was inspired, and my inspiration carried me through. Did I think and was I terrified that I would die? Yes. After about 5 days, my teeth started hurting me, and I started feeling sensations I'd never felt before. So was there a scary place in there? You bet. You bet. And it required a great deal of trust. And the trust came, thank God.
How much of the sun was involved in that too? Is it something that, was there a light diet that was involved with that, or was it coupled with it?
Not consciously, not consciously. At that point, initially, the first 3 weeks, I was pretty much indoors. After that, I got outside every day because I'm a natural outdoors person. Did it impact me? I'm sure that it impacted me in a positive way. But at the time, the experience had more to do with the term people used, a breatharian, rather than someone who was sun gazing and not eating. This was in 1994. This occurred November, December, January of 1994. So it was a long time ago, and nobody was talking about these things at the time.
Jacob, you had brought up that when you went through this experience, you realized that a lot of time we eat out of addiction or other things. And that really resonated with me because I've been having similar, I don't know if you call them downloads or just kind of feelings about a lot of the eating I've done throughout my life wasn't because I was actually hungry in a food way. I was hungry in other ways, whether it be emotionally or stuff like that. And that's kind of what I'm realizing as a society, that we don't need to eat as much as we do. There's other aspects of our life that we're hungry and that aren't getting fulfilled.
You're absolutely right. There's a reason we call it comfort food. It comforts us. And so much of our eating, exercising, doing of whatever we're doing is actually something that takes us away from what's actually occurring in life. Keep in mind something. There is no part of our physiology that is designed to initiate action. In other words, there's no part of our humanity that's meant for me to do something. The doing gets done by itself as a reflex that is in response to something in life that's inviting me. So if you're walking down the street at night and all of a sudden you get an eerie feeling and you sense that somebody is getting a little too close to you behind you, some part of your body naturally starts to walk faster. And as you naturally start to walk faster, your heart responds by beating at a higher rate. Your blood pressure increases. You're not doing any of those things. Those things are occurring on their own in response to a sensed discomfort. Our entire physiology functions that way, and it's related to light and darkness. So throughout the day and the night, light is interacting with all of our cells, guiding them in terms of what action is required on their part to synchronize their function with Mother Nature, to be at one with Mother Nature in a state of harmony. So much of not only our eating, but all of our doing is a very subtle form of addiction. And the subtleness of it is what causes us to think, oh, it's normal, everybody does it. But it's very unnatural. And so that's a very major awareness on your part, is to allow the system to respond when it receives those signals. But notice that, you see, we live in a natural world where all of this is occurring with minimal or no effort. However, we have all been conditioned to believe certain things. And remember what I said before, belief means the opposite of truth. And so very often, in fact, most of the time, our physiology is either being pushed or pulled in one direction or the other, rather than just allowing it to respond. Let me give you a perfect example. So when you and your brother were born, and the doctor or nurse or midwife who delivered you from your mother, the first thing that they did was to look at you to make sure you were breathing. And then they usually gaze down at your genitals and they say to your mother, "It's a boy." And you give the baby to the mother and the mother nurses it. If you happen to be of that time and they say you're a boy, you're wrapped up in a blue blanket. You're then assigned a name that is associated with male gender. At some point, you're assigned a religion, even though the child has no sense of skin coloration or any of that. All of that is conditioned into you. Now, if you happen to be of a female gender, you get a pink blanket. Now, what we realize today is, even though we say life is not black and white, it's all kinds of shades of gray. If you're born and you happen not to fit into one of those two slots, your life is going to be horrific because you don't fit anywhere. Maybe it's time to wrap up all babies in rainbow blankets and allow their natural humanity to expand and express who they are, not who we say they should be, but who they actually are. Because just as you can't judge a book by its cover, you may not be able to judge a human being by looking at what aspect of their physiology. That's one aspect of conditioning. I'll give you another aspect. This one is very clear. When an infant is very young, your mom or dad puts a diaper on you. When you have to urinate or have a bowel movement, you just do it in the diaper. They clean you up and that's that. But the culture says, well, when the baby gets to be at such an age, you have to toilet train them. So mom notices one day that Richard or Jimmy is making an odd sort of sound. She knows what's going on. She picks one of you up and rushes you over to the bathroom and says, hold on, and then puts you down on the little porta potty and says, okay, you can make now. Now, the signal, the conditioning that happens from that is to hold on to a natural function and only release it when the world says it's normal. And then as you get older, when mom and dad are taking a drive on Sunday, they say, Jimmy and Ricky, make sure you go to the bathroom, because once we get started driving, we're not going to be able to stop. So that conditioning is make something happen that isn't ready to happen yet. Well, that's an interesting example. You're being conditioned to push something out that isn't ready to happen, or to hold something back that is ready to happen. If you look at our life, especially the life of what happens in the mind, is we're continually trying to make something happen that isn't happening, or to stop something from happening that is. Neither one of those works. And that's incredibly related to light, because when our physiology, our mind, our body, our emotions, our mental state are synchronized with Mother Nature, because we're getting plenty of light, what happens is the timing of things is precise. The timing of your heart rate and all that, it can't get off. Your life depends on it. So in life, timing is everything. Most of us, our timing is either too fast or too slow. It's on one side or the other, but it's not in the middle. And living a successful life, which few of us have any idea what that is like driving your car. You have to keep your car in the middle of the lane, not too far to one side or the other. So I'm sharing this as an example of how light synchronizes our biology and also puts us in a state of exquisite common sense. So the response is in each moment rather than ahead of time or after the fact.
Jacob, so there's a lot that goes into light, right? And how we get it. And I know you spoke about the do's and the don'ts of sun gazing, but for someone who's listening to this podcast and they're realizing, wow, here's a gentleman that really speaks highly of light, where do you suggest someone starts as far as like what does your light diet look like these days? How do you take in natural light? How do you suggest people do it to kind of start getting some of these downloads and get more in the middle?
Good. Beautiful question. First of all, I'm looking at you from a 32-inch monitor that is directly in front of a window that's 4 feet by 8 feet with natural light coming in. So I'm continually getting light coming in, even though I'm indoors. Most of my home are windows. I'm outside every day. I sit outside as I'm having my coffee in the morning. I walk each day, and when I walk, I take off my shirt and I wear shorts. I try to get some light on my bare skin every day. If someone is just starting, if you can, put a bathing suit on, or if you have privacy, leave your clothing off. Lay on a chaise lounge outside. Begin with 1 minute on your back and 1 minute on your stomach. For men, getting light in their genital area will naturally increase their testosterone level. So everything that you get from testosterone will be enhanced. It also, as I said, lowers blood pressure, respiration. That's just from being outside and sunbathing. You begin a minute on your back, a minute on your stomach, and then you increase maybe by 30 seconds or a minute every day without sunscreens. Now, I'm not saying sunscreens are bad. If you're going to go to the beach for a few hours, it's fine to use some natural sunscreen. But if you allow your body to naturally receive light without any protection, you will see that your body has its own protection. The skin naturally thickens to protect you from burning. So it's important to get natural light. And then, of course, people say, well, what about skin cancer? The skin cancers that are dangerous are melanoma, and melanoma is rarely associated with sun gazing or sunbathing. Most people get melanoma in parts of their body where they never get any sun. So, and there have been studies that have demonstrated that the highest incidence of melanoma are not from people who are getting too much light, but people who are deficient in light, that are working indoors under artificial light. So again, common sense is the key. And when common sense is a natural part of our life, the downloads that you're talking about, which are the insights that don't come from us, but come to us, become voluminous. You start not noticing them once in a blue moon, but you notice that they're going on all day long. I mean, there is something that's continually guiding every move we make. And it's the same mechanism that guides the planets, that guides the weather systems, the seasons, and so on. So we live in a miraculous universe, and the functioning of our body is the expression of one of those miracles.
Do you live someplace where it's warm and sunny year round now?
Hawaii.
I live in Maui, Hawaii.
Okay. Yeah,
that's why they say Maui no ka'oi, nothing like it.
How does it compare to Aspen? None?
Well, Aspen is beautiful and gets 300 days a year of sunshine. It's very lovely there, but it's very, very dry there also. So you get a nice amount of sun, but you have an excessive amount of dryness. Maui has 11 different climates on one island. I live at 3,000 feet up. So where I live, you never need air conditioning. It's a lovely temperature to sleep with your windows open all night. During the day, it never gets too hot. So, and there's nothing confining my vision. So my eyes can look off to the horizon wherever I look. That's a lovely experience as well.
You talked about, where people can start in terms of, kind of minute on each side. Is there a limit as to, you mentioned your kind of setting and surroundings. Is there, because we've had
15 or I would say 15 to 20 minutes of that particular laying down, one or the other. But I think if you get outside half an hour to an hour a day, if you're allowing your skin to get light, that would probably fulfill your minimal daily requirement. You have to realize something. We've evolved under natural sunlight for millions of years. It is the most powerful nutrient on the planet. Why is it the perfect fuel for humans to consume? Because everything is literally frozen light. The human body, trees, animals, everything we notice is actually a formed expression of an unformed or formless energy called light. Give you an example. Everyone tries to quote quantum physics or quantum mechanics these days. Well, quantum mechanics deals with the makeup and behavior of things at an atomic and subatomic level. Another way of saying that is that quantum mechanics deals with the makeup and behavior of reality. What is the true nature of reality? Are things actually solid in the way we believe? Well, you start magnifying them, and lo and behold, you realize that the thing that looks solid is actually made up of just energy. Well, if you keep going down, if you could go further and further down into the subatomic level, that fundamental energy is the energy of light. So we are light beings. When we eat, we are consuming light that has been materialized in plants or in animals. When we sun gaze or are outdoors, we are receiving the nutrition and benefits of light directly. So what we call vitamins and minerals are all, the potency of vitamins and minerals are all related to the aliveness of the light content. We're all addicted to taking vitamins and all kinds of supplements all day long. And I'm not saying supplements are bad, but I always wonder, those herbs or whatever they're putting in those capsules, and then they put those capsules in an airtight container that sit on a shelf for God knows how long, and then you consume them. And you know that the most potent environmental things we come in contact with are light, air, and water. All three are totally absent in those capsules. And so, again, I'm not suggesting you should never take a supplement. What I am suggesting is if your food is real, it's fresh, it's clean, that's where you get your maximum potential in terms of nutritional uptake.
Jacob, just to follow up on Rich's question, as far as optimal times to get sunlight on your skin, is that the same as sunrise, sunset? Do you want to stay in those earlier and later hours? You don't necessarily want to be in the sun like at peak in the sky, do you?
I think I would agree with you that I think the mornings maybe up until 10 o'clock and the afternoons maybe from 4 o'clock on are optimal periods. One, the sun is at a lower level, and so you're not getting the pure intensity of it, which is higher than normal now because of the holes in the ozone layer and so on. Keep in mind, we've destructed a lot of the environment, so the quality of even sunlight is impacted by the fact that it is traversing pollution. And so the quality of light is also not what it used to be. So I think the early morning and the late afternoon are good times. I'll tell you why. In the early morning, the world hasn't started moving yet. In the late afternoon, things are beginning to slow down. Now, it's sort of like when the world is moving, it's like holding a fish tank and shaking it. There's a lot of activity. And when you shake it, all the sand in the bottom of the tank just gets mixed up, and all of a sudden, everything is obscured. You can't see. That's what happens when the world is filled with activity. If you can get your sun prior to that activity, or when it's either before it's beginning or as it's going down, you're getting a better quality of light because the sediment in the sky is beginning to settle down a bit. So those are the times that I think are probably optimal. There's another reason that those times are very, very good. About 52% of sunlight is in the red and near infrared portion of the spectrum. Red and near infrared light is what charges up the mitochondria to basically super increase the energy of each of your cells. That type of light is greatest in concentration in the morning and at the end of the day. And so that's also a good reason why that might be the best time to try it. But rather than believing what I'm saying, I think people should experiment and see what works best for each person.
I agree. I also think you're a good resource, and you've been putting this information out there for a while. So you're definitely someone that they should be looking into your information. And you had spoken of your second book, I believe, Throw Out Your Glasses or something like that. And I do not want to let you off this call before we speak on that, of how people can kind of correct their eyesight. I know you work with some different colors, different lenses and glasses, actually help people kind of remember when they started wearing glasses. It might not be their eyesight, might be suppressed emotion. So kind of go into that and how someone can kind of throw their glasses out if they follow your protocols.
Okay, rather than the idea of throwing your glasses out, the title of my second book was Take Off Your Glasses and See.
I'm sorry.
People often say, oh yeah, you wrote that book, Throw Away Your Glasses and See. No, the title is Take Off Your Glasses and See. The words that I left out was see what you notice. What do you notice when you remove your glasses? Well, people initially say, oh, it's blurry. Well, I can't see. Well, how do you feel? You know, I feel a little uncomfortable. Why is that? Well, you know, I might run into someone that I know, but I don't see them well, and I would be embarrassed. Anything else? Yeah, I feel a little bit out of control. Well, all of a sudden you realize that a lot of the reasons that we are wearing glasses is because they help us to feel more in control. And so when we start looking at someone's history, we often find that the need for glasses was preceded, usually within a couple of years, of things going on in their life where maybe they felt a little out of control or frightened specifically if they were nearsighted. The other main reason we wear glasses is one, lack of sunlight. That's a key piece. And two, visual confinement. As I mentioned before, 100 years ago, above 90% of us worked outdoors. When you're outside, the only confinement is infinity. Now, most of us are working indoors. Our vision is confined by the walls, but that's no longer the case, by the monitors, but then it became laptops, then handheld devices. Most of us are spending our day and our vision is only moving the size of our iPhone. So all of that confinement confines our vision. And that process for most people is called nearsightedness. And this is why vision deterioration is the biggest health epidemic in the world. There are many different ways of dealing with vision issues and trying to improve one's vision naturally. Maybe some people can remove their glasses. Maybe you wear them less often. Maybe you get a weaker prescription. There's a lot of different ways. There is a group that work with natural vision improvement. They're called the Association of Vision Educators, AVE. In fact, they have a conference going on as we're speaking. That's one group. Then you have a group of optometrists that are called behavioral optometrists. And you can get a list of those optometrists at a website, covd.org. That's the College of Optometrists in Vision Development. Many of them prescribe and support their patients in a preventative format. They give their patients vision training, specific exercise to change the way their eyes, their brain, and their mind function. There are optometrists that use color to support the vision process, and that is a group called the College of Syntonic Optometry. Syntonic is SYNTONIC. So that's what's out in the world. In regards to my own work, I work very differently than each of those groups. I'm no longer in practice, so I don't see patients specifically that have those kinds of issues, but I've developed certain approaches that can help people experiment to see if their system is able to move in that direction. And one of them has to do with using an arrangement of colored filters that I have developed. So if people went to jacobliberman.org, we don't have a marketing kind of website that's selling a million things. We don't have that, but because I work with people individually on a mentoring basis, I've developed a kit. It's called the Spectral Receptivity System. People can purchase that if they want. It's something that I give to all the clients I mentor, but people can purchase it. And it gives them not only a lot of information about light, but it gives them a protocol that they can use at home to use color filters to help them desensitize themselves from the habitual triggers that catalyze stress in their life. It helps them to become comfortable with things in their life that used to feel uncomfortable. And you say, well, what's the benefit of that? Well, what we know right now is 90% of disease is caused or significantly contributed by stress. What is stress? Stress is when we encounter an aspect of our life that catalyzes an allergic reaction within me. And when I say an allergic reaction, I'm not talking about breaking out in hives, although that could happen. I'm talking about it catalyzes psycho-emotional distress. It takes us from a place of ease to a place of dis-ease. So the way that I have worked with color for more than 40 years helps people to gradually desensitize from a lot of these triggers. Many of them find that as that occurs, they're able to wear their glasses less, they're able to see situations clearer. And if people are interested, you know, they can consult with me directly about the use of that kit or some other suggestions I might make that could help them. So that's a few different approaches that people can use according to what they're guided to do.
I have to check out that website. I might need to get some different colors in my life. I don't like wearing my glasses, and I've tried to get my contacts or my glasses off when I get home from work, and it's the last thing I do before I leave for work every day.
Do you know your prescription, Richard?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It's pretty bad. Okay.
Well, it's not necessarily going from glasses to throwing away your glasses. It could be as gentle. You said you wear your contacts. You're probably wearing soft contacts, yes?
Yes.
And they're probably disposable, and they come in these little packets. Now, when you look at the packet, it has a power on it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what that number is approximately?
Well, I could go grab them real quick.
Yeah, just grab it real quick and I can make a suggestion for you.
Jacob, a follow-up when Rich runs and gets that. If you don't have any eyesight issues, but you use those filters, will that help in other areas of your body relieving?
Oh, without question. Most of the people I use it with are not coming to me because of eyesight issues. They're coming to me because aspects of their life are not working. Most of what I work with these days is not eyesight issues. It's utilizing light and my own way of working with people to help people improve the quality of their life and overall wellness.
It's at -3.5.
Okay, good. So first of all, that's not that bad.
Okay.
So that's a nice thing to discover. Oh, it's not as bad as I thought. Good. So try to imagine something. I don't know where you get your contacts from. And how old are you now?
46.
46, yeah?
Yes, sir.
So are you finding any difficulty when you're reading with your contacts on?
I am now, yes.
Good. So imagine that you do this. You call your eye doctor and you say, listen, I'd like to try an experiment. When I put my contacts on, I see beautifully at distance, but I spend a lot of time on the computer and it's a little too strong for the computer. Could you get me a pair of contacts that are maybe -3 or -275 and let me try those? Oh, sure, why not? Now you put those on, and not only is your computer work more comfortable, but you may actually find that you still see quite well at distance. And within a short period of time, the -3 or -275 gives you 20/20, no problem. So then you say, well, this is interesting. Let's try for -2 1/4 now. So just, over the years, your prescription got stronger. Let's try an experiment. Let's reduce it very gradually and see what happens if we go the other way. Because your whole vision system is changing at this stage of your life. Maybe there are changes going on that you can actually take advantage of that can help reduce your prescription and also give you more comfort up close at the same time.
Okay.
That's a real simple solution. And you know what? The price was right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, just common sense.
So, Jacob, we have 4 rapid fire questions we ask all our guests, but I have one follow up to the question I asked when Rich was going to get his contacts. And you said now your work is more kind of in the life coaching aspect of things, helping people, not necessarily just eyesight. And I guess the question I have for you is, you started in the 70s with Sunlight, wrote the book in the 90s. You've been at this for a while, and I'm relatively a novice. Hasn't even been a year since I've really felt the impact of light and sunlight. What is maybe some advice you would give someone who's getting into this, getting the downloads? Everyone around them thinks they're crazy because they're picking up on things. Their senses are getting increased. Maybe what are, you talked about you didn't eat for 9 weeks. Maybe that's something I can look forward to. Maybe what are some of the things that you would give someone who's starting off with this, who's getting all this good stuff, but how to kind of maintain it and live a normal life?
Do less.
Story of
Don't
my
do
life,
more.
Jacob.
It's not about doing. It's about non-doing. And non-doing doesn't mean that you're laying on your couch and being a potato all day. Non-doing is the place between doing and laying as a couch potato. You're in an optimal state of readiness. You're just following your intuition on a continual level. So the first thing is just to notice what's coming to you rather than what's coming from you, because what's coming from you are not the downloads. What's coming to you, those are the downloads. And so you begin to notice that. People who have read my most recent book, Luminous Life, find that to be very, very helpful, because it answers a lot of these questions that you're asking, and also allows people to realize that what's happening for them isn't so hocus pocus. It's not just new age rhetoric. It actually has substance and science and years of clinical experience as its foundation. So it's not so much about doing as it is about noticing. Awareness is curative. What you are doing is noticing more. And as we notice more, our brain grows. It's called neuroplasticity. The more awareness expands, the more the brain grows. So just simple things. Take a walk. If you feel like exercising, exercise. Get outside, breathe fresh air, hang around with people that you love. That's why they say birds of a feather flock together. Notice what situations you are called to and what situations you naturally move away from. Don't look for a reason. There is no reason that you're actually going to uncover. It doesn't make any difference. Just attend to that part of your GPS that knows exactly which way it needs to move, just like you pay attention to the GPS on your phone to find a location. Your body has a GPS that is taking you to your ultimate endpoint, your location, your reason for being. So that's the simplest advice I can give you.
Thank you for that, sir. I
Yeah.
needed that. Thank you.
Sure.
So I know you mentioned before you drink coffee in the morning. So how do you brew your coffee and how do you take it?
I brew my coffee in a French press. Sometimes I have espresso, but usually I brew it in a French press. I put a little vanilla, a little cinnamon, and a little cardamom. I use coffee that has functional mushrooms in it. And I let that sit, and it's delightful. And I like to sweeten my coffee, and I use a product that is made from erythritol and monk fruit. The common name is Lakanto, but it comes in a few different names, but it sweetens like sugar and so on, but it doesn't have any sugar in it. It doesn't have any aftertaste. Often I have my coffee without any sweetener or anything in it, but that's the way I make my morning coffee. And that's usually my 1 cup of the day.
Do you have a particular bean or brand that you use? You mentioned the functional mushrooms.
There is a coffee that is made by a well-known surfer.
Laird Hamilton's?
Yeah, Laird Hamilton. This is his coffee that I'm using right now, but I was just in Europe for 5 weeks and I didn't have any of my own coffee. And I was using an Italian coffee called Ely, which is a very nice coffee, or Lavazza is another very nice coffee, because there everyone is having espresso.
Okay.
Are you coffee drinkers?
Yeah, a little
Yes.
bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit is probably perfect.
Yep, definitely.
You know, most people don't realize that coffee is perhaps the one natural product that has the greatest number of health benefits associated with it. Coffee has all kinds of amazing effects in terms of cognitive function, in terms of reducing the whole variety of cancers, in terms of their incidence. Like everything else, everything in moderation.
Yeah, definitely. Jacob, do you have any daily practices or rituals outside of your light diet and that sort of stuff that you do
No,
on a regular basis?
I don't have any rituals. I don't have any practices. My life is my meditation. And what has become natural for me is the recognition that what catches my eye is looking for me. It's no longer about what do I want from life. It's where is life taking me? Because the eye doesn't look. It's the light that grabs the attention of the eye and reflexively moves it toward the next thing I'm supposed to attend to. So I just follow that. So my day is filled with whatever's in front of me. Respond to an email, pay a bill, wash the dishes, make the bed, wash the laundry, sweep the floor. That is my meditation. It's an ongoing process. I took myself out for breakfast this morning. It's saying thank you. It's whatever it is, that's where I'm at. And what's interesting about that practice is it's not a practice. It's a full-time experience. And all of a sudden you begin to notice from that life is magical, that all day long, life is bringing me to something that requires my attention and gives me the ability and the practice of being there with it, taking care of that dish, making sure that the dish that just served me because I was able to eat on it, I clean it up nicely, I rinse it off, I put it in the dish drainer. We have a dishwasher here, it's never been used. I wash it, I put it there, or I dry it and I put it away. I take care of everything that way. There is no bill that comes to me that lasts here more than a day. It literally is taken care of and it goes out. Nothing is in the back of my mind. Oh, I have to take care of that. Oh no, when it comes, there's a reason it comes in that moment. That's part of the impeccable timing of the universe. That's what I follow.
I like that. I'm going to have to start implementing that a little bit more in my life.
Yeah, I feel like those are the best days too, when you have gratitude for washing a dish, or like you said, taking yourself to breakfast. Those simple things are what make the best days.
What's more important than what we're doing right now? We've never met each other. We had no idea what this conversation was going to bring forth. And all of a sudden we realized, wow, we're all interested in the same stuff. Some magic part of life brought us together, two brothers in different places, another guy you don't know anything about, but lives somewhere else. We're meeting for the first time. And while we're having this incredible conversation where something is talking through each of us, we think it's us, but it's not us. Right now, you keep using the word download. Everything that's coming through each of us right now is an actual download that none of us know exactly what that is. We are in the midst of this miraculous process called life right now. This is the magic. We don't have to do anything for the magic. The magic is there all the time. So I always say yes to these opportunities because you cannot be reminded enough of what is essential.
Man, put that on a t-shirt. Jacob, what are you listening to right now? Music-wise, audiobooks, podcasts, are you reading anything?
Not a thing.
Nice.
In fact, that's never been a part of my life. I was never much of a reader, so things came to me through my own direct experience. I often felt like something was wrong with me because reading was the way people seemed to get things, and that wasn't my natural approach. So I'm envious and respectful of people who naturally read a lot and gain a lot of insight from that. And I'm also respectful of my own nature and the way things come to me. And I think we have things we can share with each other that are mutually beneficial.
How about I agree with you. I'm not much of a reader myself. I like taking stuff in audio wise. Any music? You music listening?
I haven't been listening to a whole lot of music recently because I was traveling for 5 weeks until recently, but I like music. I mean, as a kid, I sang in a rock and roll band for years. So my son is a professional actor and singer. My daughter sings as well. So yeah, I guess music is in my bones. But am I listening to anything specific now? Not really. Okay. I'm listening to the sound of the birds as I sit in my hot tub in the morning.
That's pretty cool.
All original stuff.
That's a good soundtrack.
The best. So Jacob, typically we ask our guests if they have a favorite conspiracy theory, but Jimmy and I are both kind of moving away from that. The last 2 years has kind of worn us out, and it really made it not that much fun anymore for us. So if you do have one, we'd love to hear it. But I'd also like to know, we're going to add this new question to it instead. But do you have a guilty pleasure?
I like that one, Rich.
A guilty pleasure. Well, first of all, I have no conspiracy theories. My interest is truth, not opinion. So with that, do I have any guilty pleasures? Sure, who doesn't? You know, I think that the mind has many different facets. Some of them we call worry, some of them we call fantasies. So we all have guilty pleasures. I remember I was in Berlin recently, and one night I took myself out to this incredible Italian restaurant and just drank some wonderful red wine and had pasta with baby octopus in it. I was thinking, and it was spicy. And I was like, oh God. And it was early in the afternoon, and I was feeling like a king sitting on the street, just eating amazing food. So everyone has, you know, guilty pleasures. And I think the reason we have guilty pleasures is to eventually realize there's nothing to feel guilty about. And the reason there's no reason to feel guilty is because the pleasures are not actually ours. The pleasures, just like everything else, are things that are part of our genetics or part of our conditioning. And so most everything we do, we're actually not doing. It's actually doing us. So these guilty pleasures, or these pleasures that we feel guilty for, we feel guilty about them because we were conditioned to believe that we were doing it. But science doesn't bear that out. It just doesn't bear that out. So when you start looking, you know, one of the things I was impressed with is years ago, I heard about a researcher who actually was in Berlin. I should have looked him up when I was there. His name is John Dylan Haynes. And John is a neuroscientist who was very interested in free will. Does free will exist? Everyone says, well, you know, we have free will. Do we? How do you know? And so John Dylan Haynes did some very interesting research where he took subjects, he put them into the most advanced MRIs in the world. They were proposed something. Initially, it was very simple, you know, a bunch of pictures. And when you get to the one you want, you just press a button. And the idea was, you know, you're seeing pictures of ice cream, you see chocolate, you press the button. And so what they're looking for is, if you have free will, then essentially your mind makes the choice and then your brain records it and you go out and get an ice cream. Or maybe your brain notices a very short period of time before you decide on the chocolate. But what Haynes saw is that 7 to 10 seconds, and now there's been more research that's even beyond 10 seconds, which in brain time is like multiple lifetimes, because the brain processes 20 million times 20 billion bits of information per second. It's huge. So essentially, your brain has recorded what your choice is before you've even seen the picture of what you're going to choose, this or that. What I'm saying to you is, This is what I called common sense before. This is the guidance, the internal GPS that sees the invisible. When we start to realize that we're not driving this vehicle, then over time, the guilt starts melting away. And you begin to not only accept yourself as an expression of humanity, but you realize that everyone else is also an expression of humanity, not someone that's bad or good or whatever.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
You are so welcome. This has been a real pleasure. I hope we'll do it again at some point. And be good or be bad. Whatever.
Just
be whatever
be.
you are. Just be. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for inviting me. This was really a pleasure.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
your
sir. Really
time
enjoyed
and your
it.
work.
All right, heart to heart.